everybody, and a happy Tuesday to you. I'm really excited to come to you today with a technique tutorial that is in celebration of my new ebook that just launched yesterday called Sara's Stamping Techniques. So today I wanted to share with you a technique that is not in the book, but that is a combination of a couple of different techniques that I have in the book. So let me show you quickly the card project that I want to share with you today. So this is using markers to not just to color in a stamped image like we normally think to do, but to outline a stamped image. So rather than filling in the entire thing, we're going to do some outlining, and I'm going to be sharing with you how to use the Dilutions paint pens to do this. So these are a perfect tool for this technique. So what I want to do is show you the supplies that I'm going to work with, and then I'm going to stand up and tilt the camera down and we can get right into crafting. Now, a couple of disclaimers today. Number one, I've got a little bit of a cold going on, so I'm going to try not to cough during the session, but if I do, my apologies. And the second is that if you've been watching for a while, you know my upstairs neighbors are doing some pretty heavy-duty remodeling, and they have not finished. So if we hear any pounding or drilling, everything's okay. It's just that they're still working on this apartment. So pounding and hammering upstairs and possibly coughing right here, but it's all good, and we'll try to keep our fingers crossed that neither one will be much of a distraction. So to share with you again, the tools and supplies that I'm going to be working with. So I've showed you the Dilutions paint markers, and I'll talk a little bit more about these as we get into the coloring, but these are a lot of fun. So these are filled with a fast drying opaque paint, and they're really great for lots of different techniques, especially this one that we're going to do today because they have a really fine nib. So I'll show you that. The stamps that I'm going to use today are from hot off the press. This is their Easy Watercolor Floral set, and we're going to be using this great big image right over here. So that's the one that we'll be stamping with, and of course I'm also going to be using my Misty. So I'll show that process to you as well. Okay, so I'm going to stand up, tilt us down, and we can get into the stamping and coloring technique. So bear with me for a second as I lower this down, and hopefully we're right where you can see. Okay, perfect. So once again, here is the card project. And you'll notice on this big, beautiful flower that I've just simply outlined it with the paint pens. So I'm going to show you this process as well as the stamping. So the first thing I want to do is get out my Misty. Now, if you've not used a Misty before, this is a great stamp positioner. This is one that you don't have to have this for this technique, but I generally find that I'm using this for all of my stamping, so I just keep it out all the time. So I'll show you how to do this. Now, first of all, you're going to need, of course, your stamps. They're clear acrylic stamps, which means that you just need to pull off the liner on here and then pull off the acrylic stamp. So then what you need to do is put this onto either a block or onto your stamp positioner. So I'm going to grab a piece of smooth white cardstock, and I'm just going to place this down on here. And oops, and get this aligned properly. And then I'm going to take the magnets and use those to secure my cardstock in place. And then what I'll do is take my stamp. Now I've got a smooth side of the stamp, and then I've got the side with the texture on it. The side with the texture is going to go face down, just like I would do if I was using an acrylic block on here. Now I know I want to have a little bit of space down at the bottom for my sentiment, so I'm going to kind of tilt this just so I know that I've got it in the right place, okay? And then what I can do is close up the lid and press it, and then I've got my stamp on this side over here. So the ink that I'm working with is from Ranger. This is their Jet Black Archival ink. It's permanent, it's waterproof, and this is just a really good basic black ink pad. So I'm going to put the ink right on here. Make sure I get the lid back on there. And then simply press this evenly and firmly. A stamp positioner is also great if you have any issues with your hands or your wrists, if it makes it difficult to press down on an acrylic block. And then you can see I've got my stamped image on here. Now all I need to do to clean off my stamp is just grab a baby wipe, and that will also clean off any stray ink that I might have gotten onto my stamp positioner. And then I just put it right back onto my sheet and I am set to go. So then I can close that up and move this out of the way, and you can see my stamped image. Now, if I had any areas that didn't stamp perfectly, I could just leave the cardstock in place on the stamp positioner and leave the stamp in place, re-ink it, and then close my positioner up again. So it's a really great way to, you know, maximize your time and your cardstock. So now the pens that I'm working with, these are the Dilutions paint markers. And I'm going to be using London Blue and Cut Grass. So they come in sets with a range of colors. So these are just two from the set that I happen to have. Now the nice thing about these, I mentioned that it is a fast drying opaque paint. What I love about them is the nib. So the nib is a really, really fine tip. I'll grab a piece of just scrap paper so you can see. That is just how fine your detail is going to be. So if you wanted to use this to color something in, for example, you definitely can do that. But these are designed, these are designed for journaling, actually, which is why they've got that beautiful fine tip on here, which makes them perfect for this technique. So again, what I'm going to do with my stamped image, just grab that beautiful London Blue, and I'm going to simply follow the lines to trace the flower. So I'm going to go around here, just around the outside edges of this main blossom, and color this in. Now I'm going a bit close to the edge, but not necessarily staying only on the edge. So you can see already how that's standing out. I'll do it upside down so you maybe see a little bit better. And just following the outline of the flower that's been stamped on here. Now when I'm choosing the stamps to use for this technique, I like to choose those that have a little bit of a sketchy look to them, or one that's a little bit more hand drawn, because then that way I'm enhancing the design instead of trying to compete with it. And it also is a little bit more forgiving if I have any areas that don't get traced perfectly, which inevitably will happen. So I've got the outline of this done. Now you'll notice on here that they also have some shading done on the stamp itself. So what I'll do is just kind of go along and highlight those just with a scribbled effect. So you can see right there where I've done that. And that's going to give a little bit more dimension and help keep this design from looking quite so flat. So I'll just scuffle this on here again, keeping in mind that this is a sketchy style of stamp, so it's a bit more forgiving. Come along here. Now in the center, it's got some detail area, which means that I can just come along and kind of trace that, can color in the very center if I want to. And you can see immediately that I'm able to get some really cool dimension on here. Now I've got another flower up here at the top. So again, same process, just go along and trace this, do some shading, and then I've got that blossom done as well. Oops, no I don't. I've got a little bit more on here to do. Okay, so get that petal down here, and like so. So you can automatically see that it is really lifting up the design of this flower. So now what I'll do is come back with my cut grass, and now I can do my leaves and my stem. So again, same process, just coming through here, adding a little bit of detail, and now you can see already I've I've gotten some really nice style and dimension on here. Such an easy technique to do. Now, because the paint pens are a quick drying and opaque paint inside, it means that I don't have to worry about excess dry time on here. I can really work pretty quickly, and I don't have to be too precious about making sure I'm not smudging or smearing anything. So come along here and add some more. Now you could also, if you wanted, if there are some areas that are just too fine to go around, you could do some coloring in combination with your tracing. Really just depends on what look you're going for. Now with these pens, if you've never used them before, they do have a ball inside, which means that before you use them, you want to shake it so that you've got that ball rattling in there. When you get your new markers, what you'll want to do is press the tip down onto a piece of scrap paper so that you can get the paint flowing. The one thing you don't want to do, which I've seen some people do, is bang the pen, because that's not going to do any good, and it's probably going to do a bit of harm. So don't feel like you have to, slam the pen down in order to get the flow of that working. Instead, just be patient, press it gently a couple of times. You'll get the flow of the paint, and then you will be ready to go. The other thing too, of course, as with all of your markers, be sure to store these lying flat rather than up or down. If you do that, then you've got the paint kind of clogging either at the bottom or at the top. So store them like so, and they'll last a really good long time. If you find that the paint develops a bit of a skin on the nib, simply get a little bit of baby wipe onto your finger. So just pat a baby wipe and then run it onto the tip of your paint marker, and it should clear any kind of skin that may have formed over the tip. So then you've got your stamped and outlined image on here. Really quick, really easy to do, and quite a simple way to add some color and style to your stamped images. Now I'm going to stand up and lift up the camera one more time because I want to show you another card project that is a twist on this, just a bit of a variety. So let me stand up and tilt this up, and we can talk about the card project as it is. Oops, here we go. And so let me show you again. So here's that same project. So outlining with the cut grass and the London blue, and then I've stamped the Sending Happiness, which is also on that same hot off the press stamp sheet. I've added some little self-adhesive pearls and a bit of baker's twine, and then just simply mounted the whole thing up onto blue and green cardstock. So it's quite a simple, but I think really effective look. I like this if you are going for a clean and simple look, but you don't want it to be colorless or boring. So this is a nice way to add just a little touch of color. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you too is another design that is a twist on this technique. So instead of using a really fine detail stamp, this is using the Altenew bamboo. I think it's the bamboo flowers. I'll double check on that for you. But this is one of the Altenew designs, and I'm using the Altenew alcohol markers, which have a thicker nib, because I've got a thicker design going around here. So again, kind of a sketchy hand-drawn effect, but it really works beautifully also with a thicker nib of pen. So this is alcohol markers, and this is the paint pens. Two techniques, great way to add some color and style to your stamped images. Now, if you like this technique, I think you may like some of the projects that I've got in my new book. This is Sara's Stamping Techniques. This is out from Bella Crafts Publishing, and I will include the link in this post so that you can go check it out. If you enjoyed today's technique tutorial, you might find some other of the 24 techniques in that book might be of interest to you as well. Okay, thanks so much for joining me today, and I will see you again next time. Okay, take care, you guys. Bye-bye.